want to welcome to another episode of Must Be the Music Halftime Chat. And today I've got a special guest with me. As I always say, all my guests are special. But today I've got a producer, songwriter. He has been part of the New Jack Swing production team since the early days. He comes from Columbus, Georgia. He was part of the family of the of Basic Black when they moved to New York. When they split and moved to Virginia with Teddy, he joined Mucho and continued the production there. He's been credited for a number of hits and remixes that you might associate with Teddy. But it's going to be great talking to Sprague and getting his story. So I'm going to invite him in and see how it goes. Coding. Hey, Sprague, how you doing?
There we go. There we go. There we go. We're in here.
Yes, you are. How you doing?
I'm good, my man.
Yeah, well, I'm definitely glad we could have this interview. One of the things that you know, a lot of us who are very familiar with New Jack Swing, we've seen your name associated with a lot of productions, whether it's with Teddy or whether it's by yourself, and so it's going to be great. And then we interviewed Basic Black and Mucho, and they all called your name, as being with them from the very beginning. So it'll be
Yeah,
good
yeah,
to
yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So it'll
yeah,
be good to
definitely.
hear a lot of where you're starting, the music beginning stuff, and then where you are now, what we can expect going forward. I also told the fans that I was going to interview you, and so there's a number of questions and that they told me to ask you. So we'll go through those throughout the course of stuff.
Okay, okay, okay. Sounds
Yeah.
good.
So I did introduce you as I assume you're from Columbus, Ohio, Georgia, like the rest. Or is it
Yeah,
true?
yeah. Yes, sir. I'm Columbus, Georgia boy, born and bred.
Okay. So how did you get into music? What was your avenue into the music?
Well, I've always kind of been into music. I'm a church boy, so I grew up with singing and playing instruments with a couple of my dad's quartet groups. So I played drums, bass, and then I decided I was going to get into keys because that was like the next transition of what everybody was doing at the time. So that's how I really got it in as far as the saying music is concerned. And but with Basic Black, I went to school with Spec and KB. We
Okay.
all went to the same high school. Us, Dallas, and a few other people that everybody knows. Um, and they were kind of doing some band stuff, so I would hang out with them on the weekends
Okay.
and do their live band because they had a live band called Basic Black, originally.
Yeah.
And and then when Gene came down, the story with Gene came down, they did the audition. The rest of the band couldn't really go, so it was like we kind of filled in with some things.
Oh, what do you mean the rest couldn't go? How many?
Well, well, like they had a guitar player that they had a guy that was in the original band that was a part of the military. You know
Okay.
what I'm saying? So those guys, so they really couldn't just take off and pursue their dreams like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we kind of put together like a little team of people that was kind of like going for the audition. You know what I'm saying? Of course, KB, Spec, and Mucho were a part of the group, Basic
Yeah.
Black, but it was myself and this young lady named Lucretia, that
Okay.
were like the additional pieces that we needed other keyboard player. So it was me and her that kind of like fill in those spots.
Oh, so you joined you so you actually when Jean took the through them you because I know they mentioned that she had the car, so she was definitely had to be part of the group and stuff.
Yep, 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 yep. It
Okay.
was just it was me and Lucretia. So basically, we saying when Gene came down, he offered us the opportunity to be today's band. It's like we had to get to New York, saying? So it's like if we got there, we had the audition, and then that worked out well for me. It ended up being like I ended up being a roadie, saying, which was the best thing for me saying, not at the time in my mind, but at the end of the day, that turned out being the best option.
So what's the I guess before I get to what's a roadie, what did your family think? I mean, you're in a church playing music, and all of a sudden you're off to New York. What did
Oh,
they
you
think?
already know what they thought. I didn't tell my dad. I didn't tell my dad that I left. So I mean, we had a good relationship, but I didn't want to be, say at the time, I didn't want to be persuaded not to do this, take this chance. So I just
Okay.
couldn't tell him, and I said, I'm gonna go and see what happens, and if something happens, then I'll tell him. So it just happened that something happened. So and
Okay.
then like I said, he was mad, and for many years they called me the prodigal son.
Wow.
What I'm saying? But it was just it was like they said it all the time. But certain people would call me that when I go back home to go to service or go, say, "Oh, the prodigal son returned." Like a pass off insult slash whatever.
Okay.
But
O-
it was cool. I mean, it was cool, man. I can't say that I would change anything. What I'm saying? Because like I said, being that what I was doing wasn't necessarily playing keyboards, which is what I wanted to do.
Okay.
What I'm saying? They had a chance between to do either me, because they kept one of the guys from Ray Watkins, which I'm pretty sure you know who that is. They end up keeping Ray, so it was either me or Lucretia, and it was like, okay, it'll be dope to have a girl in the band, what I'm saying, versus another guy. So she ended up getting the position on, what I'm saying, because they wanted a girl in that band. So I
Okay. So
said,
who made the decision? Was that Gene or the guys?
the guys made it, what I'm saying, they made it as a consensus, what I'm saying. They made it as a consensus. We I was actually preparing myself to go back to Columbus, what I'm saying.
Okay.
And the one of my friends, Randy Hutchinson, who played drums with Keith, he was like, what I'm saying, why you going home? He's like, why don't you just be a roadie for today? What I'm saying? It's gonna be plenty of band opportunities.
Okay.
So I was like, well, what's a roadie? Because I had no idea what a roadie
Yeah, I
was.
was
You know
gonna
what I'm
ask you
saying?
what is a roadie. Yeah, what is it?
Well, the roadie is the guy that carried the equipment around and set up
Okay.
the stuff, set up the stage, and they actually needed somebody to do that because they didn't have anybody. So,
Okay.
I thank God on that note, because we're in New York. That's like the roadie headquarters of America. You know what I'm saying? It's like every live band,
Yeah.
all the live bands, go out of New York, and it's like they couldn't find absolutely anybody. And my guy Don, he was like, "Let me show you how to work this stuff." And he came. I went back with them. He showed me how to set up the setup and how things work, and a lot of troubleshoot a little bit. And then they just took it apart and said, "All right, set it up." You know what I'm
Wow.
saying? So I ended up doing that, and then they gave me the gig. So
Okay. So I mean, I guess the big question everyone always has is that you guys I spoke to Spec and I've spoken to Mucho and stuff, but you go to New York and you see Teddy, the super producer, because he even at that stage he had done Make It Last Forever. He was doing all the hip hop stuff and the guy
right.
stuff, playing and he's a keyboard player. So what was it like for you as a keyboard player, watching him
Oh
in those
man, it was
early days?
inspirational. The funny thing is that before we even got the opportunity, I was working at this convenience store, and I was listening to Keith Sweat, and I was like, man, I love this vibe. This,
Yeah, one of
what I'm
my
saying?
favorite
I
albums.
would love to, I was like, I would love to work for the producer that made this stuff, which is, I didn't know, who Teddy Riley was. I didn't actually have the record. I just used to listen to it on the radio.
Okay, okay.
And I was like, yo, man, I would love to work with that producer. So once we got the opportunity, and I, what I'm saying, it's like, it was super inspirational. I used to go leave rehearsal from today, and I would go to the studio and, like, sleep under the console, you know what I'm saying? And watching Teddy and watching Dave Way and Bernard Bell, you know
Oh,
what I'm saying?
but those guys were with him back in those early days.
Yeah, man, those guys, like, Bernard really showed me a lot about the drum machine. Both he and Mucho showed me a lot about, working the MPC.
Mm.
And like, saying, just watching Ted um create, saying, with the engineer and Bernard, the way they created was really cool.
And okay, I guess I mean because we're going to get into your career progression, and I guess I want to get back to you today. They're doing their rehearsals, they're performing. Are you still learning? Are you still playing your keyboards? Are you still playing instruments? Are you still keeping that going? Or what are you doing?
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. I mean, the one thing about being a roadie is like I had the whole stage to myself. So
Ah, okay.
you know what I'm saying? So like when you get to a gig and you got to set up the equipment, the keyboards, it's like, okay, sound guys like play that keyboard for me. So
Okay.
I would get, I would, play, to do the warm ups for, different parts. So I could, I would play different parts of the song with the drum machine, with the whole thing playing,
Yeah.
to make sure everything was working. So I would get my practice there. And then like I said, me being the roadie, and I was really like, today's production manager because they only had me at the time. So
Wow.
I would have the key to the locker to bring stuff home. So when we would get back, I would bring the drum machine out and the keyboards out, and then I had all of the whole saying GR production, New Jack Swing sound set. I had the whole briefcase. So
Wow.
I was one of the ones that had a backup copy of all the shows.
So in those early days, then you were there. Was it Today, Basic Black and Guy, or was there any other groups that were part of the show and all that?
Initially it was like, Basic Black was just a backup band for Today. So
Okay.
it would be like Today Guy. We did a few shows with Abstract.
Okay, Mary and
Zan was
Marsha.
around. I mean, Zan was around, but he was more or less in the round of, writing capacity. You know what I'm saying? And
Okay,
we
yeah.
we heard his album, but it wasn't out yet. Then
Okay.
yeah, who else we had? Deja,
Redhead.
um, the group Deja.
Yeah, and Redhead Kingpin.
Redhead Kingpin, that's my dude. That's my
Okay.
dude right there. You know what I'm saying? And Rex and Effect, of course. So
Okay.
yeah. So that was all of the guys that originally, said we were around when we first got to New York.
And so I mean, had you heard about these guys before you moved to New York? Because you said
Uh
yeah.
Rex and Effect, yes. Today, him and me, I only knew the Him and Me record,
Okay.
and that was, what I'm saying. But other than that, I
And
didn't know
Guy, I'm sure
anybody.
you'd have known about Guy and when they
Yeah,
came down.
Guy, of
Yeah.
course. Guy, of course.
Yeah.
They were. I mean, they were like the that was like the group at the time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So yeah.
And then from your point, so when you at the back doing all this stuff, were you then thinking, what was your idea about where you wanted to go? Did you think I wanted to go in production? Did you think I want to be on stage? What did you were you when you were watching all this stuff and doing all the production stuff? Did you have a vision as to where you wanted to go to?
Not really. I mean, initially it was just, I was just like, saying super like hype about being around the production, being around just the atmosphere. It wasn't necessarily to produce. I mean, that was in, of course, in the back of your brain. I would learn how to do that, but that wasn't my drive. Initially, it was just like, okay, I'll be, saying abstract, which was the plan. I was going to be abstract's MD, music director, and
Okay.
I'll learn how to program their stuff. And we were really cool, saying Marsha and
And
Mary,
Mary.
saying Topaz. So
Yeah.
we're kind of like developing a relationship as like, okay, this guy didn't make today's band, but he gonna be y'all's like keyboard, programmer and things like that.
Wow.
So we started making that kind of connection. You know what I'm saying? So initially it was, yeah, just to be a part of the band was, my ambition at the time.
But how? I mean, a lot of people, as I said, a lot of us who followed Teddy from a long time ago look at GR Productions and think, well, that was the first sort of, we have Uptown, we had Bad Boy, we had Death Row, but before all of that stuff, I mean, Motown was probably the only other label that had like all that talent under one roof and everyone was together. But that was in the '60s. So when you come into the '80s, that GR production had all that talent, and it's a pity that it didn't, it fell apart quickly. But what was it like when you've got Abstract doing their thing there, you've got Today, you've got Guy, you've got Deja, you've got all
Um,
this stuff. I mean, did you just think, wow, we're going to take over the
yeah,
music?
yeah, pretty much. I mean, Gene's, God rest his soul. I mean, Gene's, his drive was to, because he would talk to us about certain things. He's like, his thing was to create a situation where you had every group, a girls group, a guy group, a solo male, solo female,
Wow.
and like, the rap group. So he could do just like, with the Motown days, the Motown
Yeah,
reviews,
yeah.
Gene wanted to do the GR Productions, and I mean, he carried it like that. I mean, like at first, when we first got there, it was like, he would tell guys, okay, if you book Guy, you got to book today.
Wow.
So we end up getting on a lot of the Budweiser Superfest side shows, like those gigs where they would come off to the Superfest and do the little side shows in a smaller venue.
Wow.
We end up doing all of those shows, and then we would do some Budweiser Superfest shows.
Wow.
So that, I mean, it created like him doing that created an atmosphere for what he wanted to do with his playing with the company, which is, saying, I think Puffy took that, saying, because he used to be around back then. I think he took that point and did it with Bad Boy. Saying, like,
Wow.
I'm gonna get something to have every group. Saying,
Yeah.
and he made it work.
Yeah, yeah. No, definitely. Yeah, I think. Wow. Oh, so even back in those early days, Puffy. I thought he came later.
Yeah,
Puffy was the.
but Puffy was still around. He was an A&R dude, so he was still around. Saying, you would see him. You
Oh.
would see him in different places. Saying, we would be at different events. He would be around. He wasn't
Oh.
the Puffy that everybody know
Yeah,
now,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah, yeah. But was he with Uptown or was he just on his?
he was. Yeah, he still was Uptown at the time.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Because Guy was with Uptown, so he was always watching and seeing what you guys were
Yeah,
doing.
yeah, pretty
Okay.
much. Yeah, uh-huh.
Okay. So I guess a lot of us don't know much about. I know about Abstract and Deja and stuff, but what was it like for them performing? Did they? I mean, because I've seen their videos, but I never saw them live. I mean, were they? Could they hold their own live?
Oh, definitely. They sounded pretty much like the record. That was Gene Stickler. Like, Gene was a stickler. Like, yo, we gotta practice. You gotta sound like this record.
Wow.
Don't be deviating far from the record. Get that down. We're gonna do this one little part where you give them the all you got, and
Yeah.
don't do that no more in the show. And he was really a stickler about practice. I mean, like I said, we hadn't been there. I think the first day we got there, he had got locked into the studio and they couldn't leave. He's like, yo, because I think he came in to listen to the show, and they didn't have the show right,
Yeah.
saying, and Gene was basically like, yo, we ain't doing no show this weekend. Y'all gonna stay in here and rehearse all night, and when I come in the morning, if y'all ain't got this show right, I'm canceling the gig.
Wow.
And so they end up having to stay really all night. You know what I'm saying? And we were there all night too because we were getting ready for this today thing. But they stayed all night, and I think Gene came in at like 10 o'clock that next morning to listen to them do the show.
My goodness. But and I guess when you see them performing later on, you could see how important it was
Oh,
to
definitely.
get it right. And I guess that's what Barry Gordy was about, the excellence. If you want to get to the next level, you need to put on the
That's
show and
right.
stuff.
You know what I'm saying?
How go ahead.
Teddy took on that mantle too. I'm used to that with him. It's like, that just when I got back with Ted, it's like that's what we did. Like, we practiced. You know what I'm saying?
Mm,
You ain't want to practice, he gets super mad.
okay, okay, no, we'll get to that. So, and I guess the other thing, how was today? Because they had that first album was really hot, but how were they performing? And I know Bob's probably one of the top five, since from the 90s to today, still one of the top three or four vocalists. But how was he with the rest of how was today and their performance back in those days?
Oh man, we were hot, man. I mean, like, it's funny because after Mucho started doing the programming for the show, like Ted and Mucho used to get into these little programming beefs.
Oh, what do you mean?
Well, not beefs, but like these little competitions. You know what
Oh,
I'm saying? Because like shows that we were on with them, you know what I'm saying. So it became a competition with inside of GR Productions. So because like G's thing is like, yo, when you get on stage, you smash everybody.
yeah,
So that's how we usually kind of carry it, and saying like, yo, when we get on stage, we here to smash everybody, even Guy. You know what I'm saying? So it was just that thing, and I always try to make sure I do my part by making sure nothing break down,
yeah, yeah.
everything is running. You know what I'm saying?
Mm,
So I'm running around the stage. I'm learning how to do monitors and how front of house. I'm learning how to do everything.
wow.